Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought, that was nice? And then, 2 hours later, your body finally tells you the truth. Not with words. With a heaviness in your chest. With a strange tension in your jaw. With that quiet little feeling of being handled. Like someone touched you with gloves. If you know that feeling, you're not being dramatic. You're noticing something most people ignore. Because real dislike rarely announces itself. It doesn't show up as yelling. It shows up as strategy. And Machiavelli understood that better than almost anyone. Not because he was obsessed with hatred, but because he was obsessed with power. And hidden hostility is one of the oldest forms of it. The scary part is how civilized it can look. Sometimes the people who secretly hate you are the most polite in the room. They smile first. They compliment you. They even use your name a little too often, like they're proving something. And if you're a good person, you'll assume the best. You'll assume warmth means warmth. But Machiavelli's whole world was built on one uncomfortable idea. Appearances are tools. People can look loyal while they're measuring you. People can sound supportive while they're collecting leverage. People can praise you while they're quietly hoping you fail, because your success makes them feel smaller. And if you've never thought that way, good. That's not naivety. That's character. But it also means you might miss the signs, because you're listening to the words, while the real message is hidden in timing, tone, and pattern. So let's talk about the patterns. Not so you can become paranoid, but so you can stop gaslighting yourself when your intuition whispers, something is off. One of the first behaviors is this strange kind of generosity. They offer help you didn't ask for. They insist, almost aggressively, on doing something for you. And on the surface, it looks like kindness. But later, it doesn't feel like a gift. It feels like a receipt. Because the help comes with invisible strings. And somehow, you're the one who ends up indebted, even though you never requested the favor. Machiavelli wrote about people who give, not out of love, but out of control. Because when someone can say, after everything I've done for you, they don't need to openly attack you. They can just imply you're ungrateful. And you'll start shrinking all on your own. Another behavior is the compliment that leaves a bruise. It sounds like praise, but it lands like a correction. They'll say something like, you're actually smarter than I thought you were. Or, honestly, you handled that well for you. And you laugh, because you're supposed to. But your nervous system doesn't laugh. It stiffens. Because your body heard the second meaning. The one hiding under the joke. What they're doing is planting a story about you, quietly, in your presence. A story where you're almost impressive. Almost competent. Almost worthy. And if you push back, they get to act innocent. What? I'm complimenting you. That's the beauty of it. They get to hurt you and keep their halo. Machiavelli would call it a clean move. Damage without fingerprints. Then there's the way they react when something good happens to you. This one is subtle, and it's the one people excuse the most. You tell them your news. A promotion. A relationship. A small win you're proud of. And they respond correctly. They say the words that a good friend would say. But there's no warmth behind them. Their eyes don't light up. Their questions are thin. They change the subject faster than you expected. Or they immediately bring it back to themselves, not in a dramatic way, but in a way that steals the emotional spotlight. And the reason this matters is simple. People who secretly hate you don't always want you to suffer. They just don't want you to rise. Because your rising forces them to face something they've been avoiding. Envy. Insecurity. Regret. So instead of celebrating you, they flatten you. Not with cruelty. With absence. With emotional minimalism. With the kind of support that feels like a checkbox. And if you're sensitive, you'll feel it. You'll start sharing less. Not because you're private. Because something in you knows this person doesn't hold your joy safely. Another behavior is the way they use other people like mirrors. They'll bring up what people think about you. Not them. Other people. Some people were saying you've been kind of distant. I don't know. It just seems like people find you intimidating. I mean, I don't care, but some people might take it the wrong way. Do you hear what's happening? They're trying to reshape you without ever owning the knife. They're laundering their opinion through an imaginary crowd. Machiavelli understood the power of reputation. He understood that if you can control the story around someone, You can control the person without ever touching them. Because most humans will do almost anything to avoid social exile. So when someone hints that the group is turning on you, even subtly, it activates something primal. And now you're adjusting yourself, not to your values, but to fear. That's not a random social habit. That's manipulation dressed as concern. Then there's the public-private split. In private, they're warm. They text you. They joke with you. They call you one of their favorite people. But in front of others, they change. They interrupt you more. They correct you. They make you the punchline. They ignore your contributions until someone else repeats them, and suddenly it's brilliant. This one messes with your head because it creates whiplash. You start thinking, maybe I imagined it. And that confusion is the point. If they can keep you uncertain, they keep you manageable. Machiavelli would recognize this as a kind of dominance game. Not dominance like screaming. Dominance like positioning. They're subtly showing the room where you rank. And if you're the type of person who doesn't play social games, it can take you a long time to realize you're in one. Another behavior is the concerned criticism. They diagnose you with kindness. They act like they're worried about you, but somehow you always leave the conversation feeling smaller. They'll frame their judgments as care. I'm just saying this because I love you. I'm only being honest because nobody else will. I'm not trying to be mean. I just want what's best for you. And maybe sometimes that's true. But when someone secretly hates you, honesty becomes a weapon they can legally carry. They hide behind it. They call it maturity. They call it being real. But it's not clean honesty. Clean honesty doesn't feel like humiliation. Clean honesty doesn't come with that tiny sting of being put in your place. Machiavelli spoke often about appearing virtuous. And this is one of the most common modern versions of it. They look like a truth teller while they quietly enjoy cutting you down. Then there's the information hunger. They ask you questions that don't feel like curiosity. They feel like data collection. They want details about your relationships, your fears, your finances, your insecurities, your past mistakes. And they listen closely, with the focus of someone building a file. At first it feels intimate. Like finally, someone cares enough to ask. But later, you notice how they use what you told them. How they casually bring it up at the wrong time. How they accidentally mention it in front of someone else. How they shape the narrative with little details you never gave them permission to share. Machiavelli would call this simple. Knowledge is power. And people who secretly hate you love power more than they love peace. Another behavior is how they react when you set even the smallest boundary. Not a dramatic boundary. Not a confrontation. Just a simple moment where you choose yourself. You say you can't make it. You say you're tired. You say you'd rather not discuss something. And suddenly the air changes. They become colder. Or sweeter. Or sarcastic. Or wounded. They don't say, "How dare you?" They say, "It's fine." But it doesn't feel fine. It feels like punishment with perfect manners. Because the truth is, someone who likes you wants you to be free. Someone who secretly hates you wants you to be convenient. So your independence irritates them. Not because you did something wrong. Because you stopped being easy to control. And here's one of the most revealing patterns of all. They are never directly clear. Everything is implied. They never say what they want. They never state a problem plainly. They never name the real issue. They hint. They suggest. They just wonder. They ask leading questions. They speak in fog. Because fog gives them deniability. If you accuse them, you look intense. If you confront them, you look paranoid. If you stay silent, you stay trapped. That's a perfect position for someone who operates like Machiavelli described. Not moral. Not immoral. Strategic. Now, I want to be careful here. Because this is the part where a lot of videos try to turn you into a suspicious person. And that's not what this is. Sometimes people are awkward, not malicious. Sometimes they're stressed, not scheming. Sometimes they're insecure, not evil. Sometimes they're inconsiderate, not calculating. And if you've been hurt before, your mind can start seeing enemies everywhere because it's trying to protect you. So this isn't about assuming everyone hates you. It's about noticing consistency. Because secret hatred isn't one weird comment. It's a pattern of small degradations. A slow attempt to reduce you. Not all at once. Just enough that you start doing it to yourself. And that's the real danger of hidden hostility. It doesn't always destroy your life. It slowly rewrites your self-image. You start speaking softer. You start apologizing more. You start doubting your instincts. You start rehearsing your sentences. You start editing your joy. Not because you changed, because you adapted to a room that subtly punished your presence. Machiavelli's world was full of courts and kings, but the psychology didn't stay there. It moved into offices, friend groups, families, group chats, anywhere reputation matters, anywhere attention is limited, anywhere people compare their worth silently. And if you've been the target of that kind of quiet dislike, you might carry a particular kind of shame. Because you didn't prove it. There was no big betrayal, no obvious insult, no moment you could point to and say, see, just a feeling, a slow tightening, a sense that you're being tolerated, not valued. And the worst part is how alone that can feel, because you think you need evidence to trust yourself. But your body is evidence. Your dread before seeing them is evidence. Your relief when they cancel is evidence. The way you feel smaller around them is evidence. That doesn't mean you need to declare war. It just means you're not crazy for noticing. And if you're realizing right now that someone in your life might not actually like you, I want the ending of this story to be gentle. Because it's easy to turn this into a question of worth. What is it about me that makes people hate me? But that's the trap. That's what hidden hostility tries to make you believe. That your existence is the problem. When sometimes the truth is simpler and colder. Some people don't hate you because you're bad. They hate you because you remind them of something they can't face in themselves. Your confidence reminds them of their hesitation. Your authenticity reminds them of their performance. Your growth reminds them they're stuck. Your joy reminds them they forgot how. And you don't have to take that personally. Not in the be above it way. In the quiet way. In the way where you stop using someone else's bitterness as a mirror. Because the secret to surviving Machiavellian energy isn't becoming Machiavellian back. It's staying grounded enough to remember who you are, even when someone is trying to reduce you into a smaller story. You don't need everyone to like you to be real. You don't need hidden enemies to be proof of your value. Sometimes being disliked is simply the price of being visible. And if someone secretly hates you, that says something about the kind of relationship they have with their own inner world. Not the kind of person you are. So if you felt that fog around someone, that quiet tension, that polite cruelty, you're not weak for feeling it. You're not naive for missing it at first. You're just human. And you're allowed to be a human who stops offering their softness to people who only know how to use it.